Hi, everybody. Come on over to Inspired Choices Network to the chat
Are you
room.
curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Hello, beauties. Tonight, my sweet pleasure seekers, we are talking about some things that can go awry in relationships, like being bullied and gaslighting. And I think this is an important conversation because for me, when I was in a relationship where I was being gaslit, the person doing the gaslighting was so good at it that I actually didn't know I knew it was happening, but I didn't want to acknowledge it was happening because it is such an insidious manipulation and abuse that you kind of don't want to admit that you went through it in a way. So I want to talk about that tonight with you guys because I know that we've had lots of conversations on this show about different traumas and how to get away from your abuser. And I think sometimes having some details so that you can look at it and see, maybe I'm being abused. Like maybe there's abuse here. And sometimes you can be in actually a really good relationship and there might be like instances that seem like abusive, like somebody yells, which is on the list of like something that's abusive. That might happen occasionally, but it's not like your go-to way of discussing things, or it's not your only way of communicating, so you might have some options there. Everybody can get emotional at times. So, so when I'm talking about some of these characteristics, keep in mind that these are characteristics that would be predominant characteristics that you have happening frequently. So I think starting with maybe, actually, we're going to start with gaslighting because gaslighting is such an interesting word. Before we jump into that, I just want to let you guys know that if after listening to this show, you're like, hey, I really like this show. This is new to me. I've never listened to this crazy Milica before. And I'm interested in more of this. There are over 400 episodes, 450 now, I think, maybe more, that you can listen to on audio. And there are also well over 200 video TV episodes as well. Go enjoy, learn, absorb. And if you have questions for any of them, you can always contact me through my website at milicajelenic.com. So my name down there, milicajelenic.com. And at the top, there's a book now link. You can book 15 minutes for free any other time. Other than that is actually a paid for time. So feel free to book. I'd love to chat with you, especially if any of the topics that I talk about have aroused curiosity or question, or maybe they brought something up and you'd like to have maybe some coaching on that. I'm happy to gift you 15 minutes of my time. So one of the things that, when I was creating this show today, I thought, what are one of the things that, we often tend to deny or avoid or don't really want to acknowledge that is going on in our lives. And I was looking at a bunch of different things, and one of the things that I thought about was the bullying and gaslighting in relationships. And the fact that, I know I've been bullied in relationships. I know that, have I know that my dad is a bully. And I know that some people who probably watch and listen to this show, I know this because my dad has reported to me that his friends watch and listen to this show. I I can manage that now, so I don't feel bullied or abused by him. So I just want you guys to know that. But he has had tendencies to do that in the past. And though compared to his dad was awful. So I think if we look at it progressively, we are healing as a family. My dad is a lot better than his dad was, and I hope that I'm a lot better than he is, and I hope that generationally we heal and we're not wounded bullies. So I know that it can change and that it doesn't have to pass on generationally. I want to put that out there. And also that bullies can grow out of their bullying. Sometimes they just need to see a new way. And, I think my dad has had a lot of healing on that front, which is amazing to see and be part of, and to be able to see this in this lifetime, which is really great to me. And so I do know that not everybody wants to be a bully. Some people do, and they actually just keep going because they don't know any other way. But there are people who will, when they realize what they've done, they actually have remorse. A lot of bullies don't have remorse, but when bullies have remorse, there's room for change, and they're probably deep down, they're not so bad. Though gaslighters tend to have no remorse. So if we're going to create maybe a delineating here, look at them in separate ways, is sometimes bullies will actually regret what they did. They actually have feeling, not all. Sometimes those bullies become gaslighters, and gaslighters tend to not care. They're more narcissistic. It's all about them and their right, and their way is the highway. We're going to look for some telltale signs of the differences between bullying and gaslighting. And we're going to start with gaslighting because it's a term that's actually been coming up more and more. I've been seeing it in all kinds of media all over the internet. And the first time I heard it, that term, was in some courses I was taking. And the teachers of the class were using that term, gaslighting, which was based on a 1944 film called Gaslight. That film, and it came back, had a revival in the mid-2010s. So gaslighting is actually a term that is connected to that 1944 film, Gaslight. Gaslighting, as we have it as a definition, is loosely defined as manipulating someone into questioning their own perception of reality. And when you start to think you might be a little crazy, like when you're in a relationship and you start to think you're nuts or you must be wrong or everything you're doing is wrong, you might be in a relationship with somebody who's a gaslighter. I'd like you to just keep in mind that some of these qualities, traits and personality, these signs that are like things that are going on, some of them also go with bullying, but these are some of the top warning signs of gaslighting, is that they tell white lies, random white lies. So the person that I was in a relationship that would tell white lies about everything, like even about food, and it's like everything had to be a lie. They didn't actually know. Maybe they didn't know reality anymore. I have no idea. It was really weird. And they would deny something even when I had proof. So denying things, even when there's proof. One of the things they would deny was drinking alcohol. They could actually have alcohol sitting right in their hand, pouring it in their mouth and saying that they didn't do it, in total denial of it. They can also make you doubt your own judgment. So you might have decided something, and then they will use words or different tactics or different things to make you feel like whatever your choice was wrong. Whatever you did was wrong. And you start to doubt yourself. And the more you doubt yourself, the less ability to make a choice you have. And it's almost like, we were talking about porn addiction last week and how it works on the prefrontal cortex so that you almost stop being able to make choices. This probably, and I'm not sure because I didn't read any medical journals on this, whether gaslighting also affects your prefrontal cortex so that you're not able to make decisions, because at some point you stop trusting you and you don't really make decisions. And also one of the things they do is they make you mistrust others, or lose interest in people and things that take your attention away from them. So I was in that relationship. There was a lot of scenarios where I was being told that, my family members were wrong and bad if they didn't like this person who was an abusive addict. That if people didn't like them, then then, and if I didn't want to be with them, then I was a bad person for wanting to walk away from the abuse. I was like a bad person for not buying into their stories. And and I'm telling you, it took years to get away from this person. I am grateful for the sperm they donated to have the child that I have. I grant you that. Um, However, the abuse was so uh, from such a place of manipulation and so insidious that it was like hard to even hmm, hard to even realize how long it had been going on. It had actually been going on since the very first day, which looking back now, I know that. But in the very first day, even the manipulation to even talk to me was fascinating. So if you have been in a relationship where somebody keeps lying about everything and anything, and it's like they just can't help themselves, they have to lie, or they deny something even when you have proof, and you put the proof in front of them and they deny it, you know, they could have an unhealed, childhood trauma that's making maybe them lie a bit. But then if they continue to do that and they don't actually fess up and they make you doubt your own judgment, and then you start not believing in yourself and you start to think that there's something wrong with you and you can't even trust you, that primal trust is gone. Then there's also, making you like separate from others and mistrust others so that you end up feeling isolated and like they're the only person you can talk to. So then they have even more control. And then they wear you down to a place where you feel lonely, exhausted, and hopeless. And just like you just want to give up on life, like why bother? Nothing's going to get better. I literally felt that way for many, many years. And then um, my now husband was like this beacon of light that came out of nowhere. Um, and people talk about a knight in shining armor and how that doesn't happen. Well, I have to say mine was a knight in shining armor and he did happen. And um, the patience of, I think the saying is the patience of Job. I mean, the testing that he went through would actually take great faith in a higher power to be able to make it through. So I think when you know that you have been gaslit and you're coming out of it and you're starting to look at your life and you're like, wow, this stuff happened. One of the first things to do is get yourself out of that situation. And for me, what I needed was uh, a bunch of people I needed like a community, and I needed a bunch of people I could rely on to talk about things. Uh, didn't have to be professionals, but it does help to have professionals. I had friends I could rely on. I had different outlets that I could utilize that would help remind me of what is like, hey, remember the time this happened, stay strong, stay away. And then the knight in shining armor shows up who reminded me of my worth, like daily. Actually, reminded me today as I was getting dressed for the show. Uh, and I'd like straightened my hair, and Mike's like, hey, your hair looks so cool. I'm like, thank you. And he's like, you don't usually do that for your show. I'm like, not very often, but today I felt like looking professional, so I straightened it. And I'm like changing my clothes. And he goes, and so I'm like topless at this point. I'm changing my clothes. And Mike goes, if you went on like that, you'd end up having a viral video. And I don't know, are you ready for that? I was like, well, thank you for, you know, your words of affirmation about my breasts. I appreciate your love of my boobs. It's great. And it's like a very different energy than what I had in the past, which was basically like nothing about me was good enough. And I was supposed to do things. Somehow I was supposed to become Asian, actually, because his preference was Asian women. And I'm like, a very tall white girl. So brown on the inside, white on the outside. But It was not ever going to happen, was it? No, because that's not how I was born. So when somebody is trying to change you and make you feel crazy, like there's something wrong with you because of the way you're showing up, you might be being gaslit. Could be being bullied, which we will talk about in this next segment, is a little bit of bullying. We'll come back and forth. We'll discuss how you get out. We'll figure out how to move forward. So you are listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we're discussing some terms that are coming up a lot in the media, bullying and gaslighting. And I know these terms have been, thrown around for a really long time. And I don't know why, but it just felt like now's a good time to talk about it. I think maybe there's some anniversary coming up in my life that I'm looking at unconsciously. I don't know. So there is, there's some stuff that you might have even done some of the things in the last segment that we've talked about, which is like you might have told some white lies in your life, but that doesn't mean that you're a gaslighter necessarily. The chances are you might have told some white lies and then you've had to turn around and you might have felt guilty. It might have been eating away at you. So then you turn around and confess or something. That can happen too. So we're going to talk about some typical signs of bullying. And I just want to let you guys know that if you are going through any of these in a relationship right now, if you notice some of the signs that I talked about around gaslighting, where some of the warning signs of the person telling white lies, denying something even if you have proof, whether they make you doubt your own judgment, or they might make you mistrust others or lose interest in people and things that take your attention away from them, so that you're basically left alone and sad. And they make you this kind of perpetual, like, kind of coming at you so that you feel like you're crazy, and they'll actually say you're crazy, you're insane, that's not true, blah blah blah. And eventually you hear you're crazy, you're insane enough that you start to think you actually are crazy and insane. That'll actually wear you down and make you feel so tired, so exhausted, so hopeless, that you often are so tired that you don't even seek help. That's the problem, is we get so tired that we forget, we just surrender, and we become kind of like zombies, like walking zombies, and there's no sense of, like, who cares? It's like, doesn't matter. Life just is just like a pile of weird, crazy stuff. And I don't know, who cares, who wants to live anyway? So the hopelessness kicks in. So then the desire to get help isn't really there. Or because there's so little trust that you have in yourself and your own judgment. And there's also very little trust in your judgment about trusting others, that getting into therapy is very complicated, because you might not necessarily feel like you can open up to a therapist or a coach or somebody. But if you do feel a little bit of like, I can open up to somebody and that somebody happens to be me, I would be happy to talk to you, get you on a call. And you can book a time with me through milicajelenic.com, MILICAJELENIC.com. You can book a time, 15 minutes for free, or if you need more, can definitely look at that. So just looking at some ways maybe to get you either figure out what's going on in your relationship. Maybe you are being gaslit. Maybe you are being bullied. Maybe you are the gaslighter. Maybe you are the bully and you regret being a bully and you'd like to change that. Chances are, if you're a gaslighter, you're just going to keep doing it because it's narcissistic behavior and you just want to. And if you are feeling bad about the bullying and you would like to be able to switch that, awesome, give me a call. We can go through that. We can look at how you can grow up. And by that I mean, like, get out of that all the behaviors that are things that you are not having awareness of, which can be very unconscious and almost childlike. And becoming more mature, being aware of it, being able to change it, catching it when it happens or before it happens, even better. And then changing it and creating a different way of being, right? So yeah, feel free to connect with me on any of those fronts, if any of the gaslighting is happening. So let's talk a little bit about bullying. Bullying in relationship, especially like marriages and say like romantic relationship, tends to be very emotional bullying, right? In school, you might have people who, tie your shoes so you trip, pull down your pants so you're embarrassed, put things in. And I'm saying all this because this is all when I was in grade school. There was a kid, Joey, Samet, calling you out, used to do this to several of the kids in class. I won't name who were the ones being bullied, but I do think that Joey actually was probably bullied in his life because he took it out on people all over the place. He was really intelligent, but he was also super destructive. So he did things like pull down pants and tie shoes and do things that were just like mean, cruel. And so that tends not to be what happens in marriages. It's a different kind of bullying. So it's an emotional bullying, although emotional bullying happens in school as well. And we'll talk a little bit about what that is. So emotional bullies generally are just really unhappy people anyway. I think they tend to come from really abusive homes, and the only way they can kind of feel empowered is to make other people feel small. They tend to be motivated by things like fear, or they're just really insecure because probably they're at home with somebody who's a gaslighter or a bully themselves. So they just need to, in their own way, think that they're controlling others so that they feel stronger. And emotional bullies tend to use words rather than like punching somebody or anything like that, like the tripping and the pulling the clothes off and all that stuff. So emotional bullies work through coercion, manipulation, and intimidation, and they tend to drain the relationship of trust, and they tend to drain the relationship of kindness and respect. Similar to gaslighting, right? But a little different. I do have more faith that bullies can heal because I've seen it personally in my life, and I've also seen the people who bullied my kid. I've seen a couple of them apologize for being bullies and like genuinely felt bad for their behavior. So I do think there's hope in the world for bullies to grow up, and hopefully they do it before the age of 10 or something, or 12. But sometimes they just need a reality check and realize how they would feel if that was happening to them. So we're going to look at some of the telltale signs that you might actually be in a relationship with an emotional bully. And emotional bullying is abuse, just FYI. And if you are with an emotional bully, if they aren't seeking to get any kind of counseling or therapy or coaching or anything like that, and they think they're in the right and they think they're right all the time, then it's a great time to separate and get divorced. And it's a little bit easier to walk away from a bully than it is a gaslighter, because with gaslighters, you tend to feel so insane you don't even know. With bullying, it can sometimes be a little bit more obvious. So you might see it for what it is, like things like aggression. So emotional bullies will use, be verbally, sometimes even physically aggressive, like maybe like pulling your arm or like shaking you or something like that, is some aggression that way. But this is something that we're talking like on a regular basis. Like this is their behavior. This is how they are, right? So if you're getting this on a regular basis, guess what? You're living with a bully. They're living with a narcissist, and also they might have a combination of things going on. And again, if they are not willing to get any help because they think they're in the right and they think their behavior is acceptable, as the nanny would say, your behavior is unacceptable. But I didn't do her accent well. Sorry, nanny. We can look at some of the aggressive behaviors that would come as emotional bullying, like shouting and swearing. Just loudness for no particular reason to me is like so aggressive. I can't even explain how obnoxious it is to my being and my brain and the frequency and the oscillation that I am. Like it's so obnoxious to me that I have a hard time with it. So if somebody's swearing at you, calling you like a mofo or a this or a that, or the C word, or that you're like, if they're swearing at you directly, calling you names, and or just swearing at you about like put that effing garbage out or something, like unnecessary aggression, yeah, that is aggression. So that's that on a, if it's come out of your mouth once and you've apologized and you put yourself in check and you're not doing it again, okay, you got yourself in change mode. If you do this on a regular basis, you need to figure out why. Why are you being an aggressor? What is going on? Seek help for sure. You need some therapy. You need some anger management. So if it's happening to you, if the aggression is coming at you, the shouting, people being loud or obstructive, getting in your way, like stopping you from leaving the house, like blocking you and yelling at you, slamming doors, throwing things, lying, accusing you of things like you're having an affair, even though you're not, blaming you without any evidence, just to blame you, like you did this and you did that, or creating tension and hostility for no reason, or being physically intimidating, like standing in the doorway or throwing things at you. So the previous relationship was both a gaslighter and a bully, because he did a lot of these things on a daily basis. I could see that aggression. And then it was like, I just thought, well, I've dealt with bullies before. I can manage that part. It was the insidious manipulation that was a little trickier to see. So physical intimidation, causing all kinds of things just to cause fear. Like, I'll take your kid, I'll run away, I'll hurt your mother, I'll kill your father, I'll do this, I'll do that. That kind of stuff. Yeah, that's an aggressor. And yes, I've heard all of those, including having somebody be so aggressive that they tried to drive my current husband off the road. So fear tactics, right? And then also turning on you, like where, you could just be sitting there having dinner and all of a sudden they freak out and spaz on your head for nothing. And all of a sudden you're in trouble and you don't know why. So once a bully realizes that they get response from any of their aggression that they're throwing at you, if they notice that you're responding, they're going to keep doing it because they love the attention and they love to control their partner through fear and through anger. Now, there are people who actually don't like that they're doing that, and they will, if you let them know that there is help out there, and you can get anger management, and you can get all kinds of coaching, and you can get healing, and you can get help for whatever reason is the underlying cause that's creating this in you. I'm a fan of anybody who's seeking to have change and to create better in themselves. So one of the other signs is control in general, which is also an abuse. So a bully will often use control or coercive behavior in general to limit your freedom. So I'll give you an example of that, which is like, say I'll give you a fine example from my own life. So I was pregnant at the time and going into a city where I needed to go around and visit people. Now, the vehicle that we had at the time, I could have been driving it, but the abuser decided it was more important for them not being pregnant to drive the car and for me to take public transit because they didn't like public transit. So, 9 months, 8.5 months pregnant, walking up and down stairs, going on the subway, even though a vehicle was available. That's controlling. It was also to see if I would still go and do the things I wanted to do, because the idea was that it was going to make things difficult for me to actually go and do them. So he thought that I wouldn't, but I still did. And then he would just get mad that I went off and did it anyway. So controlling, there you go. There's a lot more controlling examples I could give you just from that relationship alone, because it's like master controller. And then, being coercive, and also just, here's another example too, like where the person is so controlling that they monitor your time and what you're doing. So I had a job at one point where I was doing readings for a public event, and I ended up getting hired for a few extra hours. And this person was going mental that I was late, that I wasn't where I was supposed to be, even though I had texted to say I'm still working. They were like, well, just leave, blah, blah, blah. Just angry, right? Bullying is so unattractive. It is one of the least sexy things. Between being a gaslighter, a narcissist, and a bully, it's not sexy. If you think you're sexy, you're wrong. You're wrong. Go get help. We're going to talk more about bullying because I have so many fine examples of being bullied in relationship that I can share with you that you might relate to, or you might think, whoa, that's crazy. Either way, you probably have some stories of your own. And if you'd like to share them, if you need to talk them out, if you need to be able to work that out of your brain or in your body, and you need to talk about that in some way, feel free to connect with me through milicajelenic.com and book some time, and we can look at that. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 days of sexual magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, sweet pleasure seekers. So just before break, we were talking about some bullying and some examples of bullying. I find the examples of bullying are easy to find in my past relationships, so that's why I'm using them as an example. And by all means, if you guys have some and you'd like to talk about it, or share with all of us what's going on, go ahead. So when one of the things that I talked about just before going to break was how emotional bullies, well, bullies in general in say adult relationships, tend to use things like control. They tend to like to control your behavior through doing things like monitoring where you're at, where you're going, who are you with, what are you doing. Might be checking on you, texting you every 5 minutes to see what are you up to. They might be stalking you on social media. I even got stalked after by that person after a breakup, to be told that I shouldn't have gotten married or something. And I was like, wow, didn't know it was your business. Controlling all kinds of things. And they tend to want to just keep on controlling until they finally realize they don't have any control. And I don't know what the breaking point is for bullies where they realize they don't have control, but I do know how, as somebody who was bullied and gaslit, how you feel when you recognize it and you walk away and you feel empowered. I know what that feels like. I know that when you do feel empowered and you do recognize the abuse and you get help for the abuse and you start to feel stronger in yourself and more trust in yourself, you can look back on it and it can just be one of those things where you just want it to all be over and done. Like you're happy to have it over and done. And there's not like ties that you have to there's like no desire to reconnect with the person, to like catch up. There's like, yeah, it's done. It can be very freeing, I think is the word that I'm looking for. So freeing and empowering. So you'll start to feel more more empowered the more steps you take towards getting away from that relationship. And we talked about this last year, like getting away from the abuser. And my mom and I were talking about that. And one of the first things we said was like, have your own bank account. It's really important to, even when you're in a healthy relationship, have your own bank account. It's just good to have. Just good to have different ways to access money always, in case one is down or something happens. It's just a logical move to have more than one. But one of the things that I think is important if you are in an abusive relationship is to find ways that you can have money so that you do feel safe, so that you have a way that if you need to get out, you can start to develop connections with people outside of the people that you already know, like new connections that can maybe be resources that the abuser doesn't know about. So if you need to get away, you can, or find places like in our area, there's a place called 3 Oaks, which is an abuse center that you can go to, and you can they'll put you up, and I think you can live there in a home or something. I don't really know. It's like safe homes. So there are ways that you can get out, and often being in a place where the abuser can't find you will certainly help you feel safer. And that's important in order for you to heal, is to feel safe. So, and I'm not saying that, I want to just say this really clearly, that it's not just women who get abused or gaslit or, or bullied. This is not gender or sex related whatsoever. This happens across the board. So whatever relationship you're in, if this happens to be something that's going on, get your money, create connections, find a way out. You don't necessarily have to show that you're getting stronger in front of them, because if you do, they tend to want to knock you down even harder. So sometimes just keep your strength a little bit as your own secret. It's like, oh, I'm actually getting stronger. Just know that about you. Get yourself on track. This is actually my mom's tactic of getting away. She found a way, and it was having her own money, finding her route out, finding somewhere to go, and getting her strength back internally first. She started to do that first, and then she had the strength to leave, which was really big. It was a really big thing in like 1979 to get divorced. I think I was one of there was maybe 5 of us in our school that had divorced parents. It wasn't common. Now it's like everybody's got it's more uncommon to have married parents nowadays. So, all right, so we're going to go to some of the other signs of bullying, which are things that are more like passive aggressive acts, which passive aggression is, it's that's what I have to say about passive aggression. Silent treatments can be passive aggressive. They tend to be a bit passive aggressive. My husband tried to be passive aggressive with a silent treatment on me once, and he's never done it again. I called him out on it. And then we got engaged a few weeks later, because he realized that he realized something, but I realized that, yeah, that doesn't work for me, and let's grow up and do it different. So we've done it different ever since. So one of the things you can do is be honest about your feelings, rather than just being covert or saying it in a weird way, like sarcastically or something. Say how you feel, move through it. And then, your words might not be perfect at first, and you might need to develop your language a little bit more to be kind. And that takes practice, because oftentimes in an abusive situation, and if you've been in one for a really long time, you actually don't know any kind words anymore. They've not been in your vocabulary for a while. So passive aggression can also be things like avoiding cooperating with your partner, or passive aggression can also be withholding sex or intimacy, like using withholding of sex and intimacy as a punishment rather than as like play. Like for some people, it can be playful, and it can be a form of like consensual non-consent, of like withholding sex just to see how long you can go, just the tension of it. Sometimes people withhold sex because legit they don't feel well, or their body is off, or their hormones are off. So withholding sex isn't always passive aggressive. It's if it's used as a punishment, and the punishment is not something that the person is like turned on by or agreed to, then it's a form of passive aggression. Also, passive aggression can also come up with controlling finances or limiting resources. Like, no, you can't have this food in the house. No, you can't have a new pair of shoes. No, you can't have this, or controlling the money as in, allotting it out somehow. So as a couple, it's really good to have and understand where your finances are at and what your budget is looking like, and always have money for fun. And each of you should have money for fun. It's just something I'm a fan of, that is like, nobody has to answer to it. It's your fun money. And then some other passive aggressive things can come into if you make a decision and then like undermining each other with your choices instead of finding a way to find a resolution through choices. So, or even like doing things like deliberately ignoring you. So if you're in a relationship where you speak a different language with someone, so my dad is pro at this one, so he will specifically speak Serbian, and he's always done this. So it's not just because he's getting older and forgetting English, but he's always done this in a room with a lot of people. He will specifically speak Serbian to me, even though nobody else speaks Serbian, because it's like, I don't know, he loves excluding people or making them feel awkward or wondering what the secret language is. So I'll respond to him in English. And he's been getting used to that now, that I will always speak back to him in English in front of other people who don't speak Serbian. One of the other things that can be part of it is, humiliating you or being patronizing in front of others, for sure. That's passive aggressive. Not sharing information can be passive aggressive. Or say like you're doing something that's really important to you. Say you have like a big client or a big meeting, and they deliberately walk in and make noise and ruin your potential client or something like that, like sabotaging that. So that's another one of those things that the ex did. It's actually everything on this list. I've experienced all of it, guys. So I can talk from experience, and I can tell you from experience what it's like to get out of that and how to move forward. So, you might not even realize it, but you might just be feeling really crappy and not know why. And, if you look at some of these things, if you've been going through some of these things, experiencing these on a regular basis, you'll probably feel pretty crappy. So it's time to turn it around and be able to stand up for yourself and be able to move forward, right? So let's look at, how do you move forward truly where you feel strong? And so we'll look at some of that when we come back from this next commercial break. And we're going to finish up the show with some tips and tools on how to get out. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network. We'll be right back after these messages.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email. info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, sweet pleasure seekers. Today we've been discussing, figuring out if you're in a relationship with a bully or somebody who's gaslighting you, who wants to do that. So we've been talking about the signs of bullying and gaslighting in relationships. And a lot of times when you're being gaslit, you might not even realize that it's happened because it's so insidious and manipulative. A lot of times you'll probably know if you've been bullied, although, sometimes nobody wants to admit it. So you'll stay in an abusive relationship because you don't want to be that person who got bullied. So you stick around for a while, and you stick around sometimes for a really long while. And sometimes you stick around because there's children involved or there's money tied into things. So like I was mentioning first, always get that bank account that's yours. If you don't already have one, start making sure you have money, that you can leave. That's so key to me, because I think so many people, they talk about the reason why they won't leave is the money. So make sure that you have it. Then some of the other reasons why people don't leave is because they don't want to be lonely. So find your emotional support team. And sometimes you got to pay for that team at first and have coaches and counselors and all kinds of things like that. Sometimes you pay for your support, and then sometimes you develop friendships too that are outside of what the friendships were that you had in relationship or during that relationship. There's lots of ways to meet people. I'm a fan of meetup.com because there's a million different things that could interest you that you could get on there and then go hang out with people that you have something in common with. And I think being able to do those things is really great, and then finding a way to get out. One of the things about leaving a bully is that a lot of times you can just feel so stressed, and your body can feel so stressed that you don't even realize that, sometimes you're just not aware that you have been going through all this abuse. So, and your body is so stressed that you don't really recognize it. There are some things that will probably happen in your body when you're under that much stress and duress. You'll probably have things like insomnia. You might have anxiety or depression. You might have low self-esteem. You might have eating disorders. You might have, well, there's a whole list of things that might be going on. So if you're experiencing something and you're like, I have anxiety all the time, look at your relationships with yourself, with your work, with your partner. Who are you with? Is there any bullying or gaslighting going on? Get clear on that. And then if that's not it, and it's just like stress due to like quantity of work, then that's a whole other situation. That's more like burnout, where you're working, but not getting the recognition. That can bring anxiety and exhaustion too, and insomnia. And then there's, also, so heart palpitations, I suppose, too, because I'm thinking about like what happens to a body when it's in parasympathetic dominance. So also weight gain can happen. A bunch of different things can be going on in your body. So what you want to do, and you want to make sure that you're getting out of this relationship, is in order to be able to go to court and get divorced, say if you're married, is you're going to need to keep a record. So I know it sounds daunting, but if, say, an abuse occurred on a certain day, write the location, write what happened. If you happen to have, like, I don't know, cameras in your home, and you can have video evidence, fantastic. If you can happen to record things on audio, that's great too. Although a lot of these things are so manipulatable these days, I don't know what holds up in court anymore. But keep as much record as you can. Paper trails, I'm like such a fan of that too. So if you are keeping record, I would also print off the record, keep it in a file somewhere, maybe in a bank vault, so that if your hard drive ever goes down or the entire internet crashes, you still have your paper evidence somewhere that you can get to it. So having a written record really helps, like dates, times, situations, and how you felt, and what the situations were, and what kind of situation you were living in. That way you can give, if you're working with lawyers or counselors, you can give them a big picture. And sometimes if you are working with counselors, having that too, they can sometimes look at all of that and see a pattern, and they can help you better with seeing those patterns and being able to navigate some solutions for you. So definitely seek out assistance. You are 100% worth it. And if you landed in one of these situations, I think it's really important to if you've landed yourself in a situation of abuse, just be really aware that you can absolutely get strong and get out. And if you happen to be somebody who you think, when you're listening to this and you recognize some qualities and you're like, oh crap, I'm a bully, and you'd like to get help, there's also help for you too. And congratulations.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.